All right. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We have Adam and Tom with us. We have quite the busy day going on. Adam is trying to catch up from his week of vacation. I'm in the middle of a couple of big projects, and Tom is actually in the middle of a huge Office 365 migration. It's a little bit of craziness. And so, as we started to go through the list today, we were all like, we really don't have a ton of time. So, what we decided to do today, after reading through the list, is we're going to pick our top three. We have three categories, so we're each going to pick one of the top things from the list. But let's be honest, there really isn't much more than one from each one of the lists we want to do. It's like Microsoft might have taken off last week for Labor Day. I mean, there's some cool stuff in here, but it's not like there's anything crazy. So in the comments on YouTube and in LinkedIn, I will be posting a link to a PDF that has all of the changes for you. So you can definitely read up on them, but we're going to just go through each one of the sections and talk through it. So the first one is in development. This means it's in the back offices at Microsoft. They are figuring out how to make it work, and they're out there building it. So let's go techie first. And Adam, why don't you talk to us about your in development feature of the week that they're working on?
Sure. So there's actually several for Intune, but there was one in particular I thought was pretty cool. They basically just announced that they will have 0-day support for iOS 13. All this really means is that if you are using Intune and you have MDM policies deployed for your users that are on Apple devices, tablets, iPads, iPhones, things like that, in the past, you always had to worry when a new Apple update came out, well, what if they released a new feature? What if something changed? Is that going to break anything? This shows a cool level of partnership that's going on between Microsoft and Apple, where basically they're assuring people that the day iOS 13 launches, all the capabilities are going to be covered. Everything's going to keep working. You don't have to worry about it. So for the people out there that are using Intune for their corporate devices, cool to see, and I think as a whole, cool to represent the fact that they're actively working with someone who historically has been a competitor to kind of bring a better experience for their joint users overall, which is just it's neat and it's nice to see.
That's awesome. Well, cool. All right. How about you, Tom? What is your feature of the week that's in development?
My development feature of the week is they are going to manage sharing and access request settings from the site permission panel. So normally, to be able to go out and say, hey, can people share files? Can you restrict everybody else from sharing? Things like that. You had to work your way into the advanced permission settings area. Well, now they're going to make those options available in that side panel there for permissions. So I think it's nice to have that kind of stuff front and center, especially with people who are relatively new to SharePoint Online. The fact that they can see that these options exist now without having to dig into areas that they probably wouldn't go into on their own, I think that's a positive step forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing that one come out.
Yeah, no kidding. Just today, Adam was pinging me about permissions, and he was asking me about an obscure permission level. And he was like, well, where do I find this? And I'm like, oh, well, you have to go back into Classic, then you have to drill down here and go do this. And it turns out that he just couldn't find it because he wasn't back in Classic mode. But to be honest, why would you ever think you have to go back into Classic mode to find the simplest of settings? So I'm excited that they're going to modernize that fully there. Well, my in development feature of the week is Planner for Office 365 F1 and Microsoft 365 F1 licenses. And so I just think it's great that the tools are coming across to all of the licensing levels. I think it gets very confusing when you have to figure out with, oh, I'm licensed for this. Oh, but I've got this flavor of this licensing. So it just gets very confusing. So I'm excited to see them bring some of that down to the different levels. So
yeah, and for clarity, and the reason Jen said down to the levels, F1's what used to be the kiosk licenses. It's like the entry level, bare bones. I don't want to pay a lot, but I need some functionality because these people are in my organization. So cool to see them bringing more apps and tools to basically the entry level license.
Well, we still have to automate processes with these users. So right. I want to be able to do these things with it. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Well, moving on to rolling out. Well, we had a good rhythm going. So Adam, what is your rolling out feature of the week?
Yeah, so when we're going through and looking at rolling out of what they do, one of the things I really actually liked was they're talking about doing a per site anyone expiration policy. So this gets into the intricacies of what you're doing as an IT admin. And traditionally, IT admins, if they had it set up that you could create a link that anyone could use, you basically said, okay, this lasts for 30 days, this lasts for 15 days, 14 days, whatever you wanted as an admin. And that then matriculated down to all the sites. So that's cool. That's how I've done it for years. It makes sense. Well, they kind of realize that certain sites have different functions. What if you have a site in your organization that is purely used for external sharing and it's, marketing stuff? You don't care if someone has that file. It's not going to matter. Anyone can view it. You don't really want it to expire. Well, if you're going in and creating these anyone links and they expire in 30 days, 35 days from now, someone tries to click on it, they get an error, they email back through, it could just get messy. But you don't want to change your whole tenant policies for that. Well, now they're doing it so on a per site basis, you can create your own custom expiration policy for this. So if I had this marketing site from our example and I basically said, I want that to be 365 days for a year, it's good, I could go and do that without compromising the security of my other sites. Just cool thing to see from an IT admin perspective. I didn't even really know this would be something that'd be like, oh yeah, I could use it, but totally can see the value of this. I'm sure for certain people, it'll make their life a lot easier.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Tom, how about you? What is your rolling out feature of the week?
This is a feature that I've heard talked about. I've seen the demos of it, and I cannot wait for it to show up. And that is when you're creating new SharePoint Online lists, you'll be able to create lists from list templates, but also create new lists from Excel. And you're thinking, hey, I could do that in SharePoint 2010. What's the big deal?
It never worked.
It never worked. There you go. That's the big deal right there. The cool thing about creating SharePoint Online lists now from Excel, that where normally it would go out and say, yeah, that looks like a text, yeah, that looks like a date field, I'm going to take my best guess. And then afterwards, you'd have to go in and clean it all up. And half the time, I'm just like, it's not worth it to me. I'm just going to go create it manually, custom fields. Well, now what you can do is you say, okay, here's the Excel spreadsheet. And it actually gives you the layout across the top of, here are all the columns that are going to come in from your spreadsheet. And at that level, you have the ability to remove columns that you don't want to have show up. You can change the type of formatting. So if it interpreted a date field as a text, you can turn it to a calendar. And so you can do all your list configuration before you say, okay, create it. And it will show you basically what the samples look like based on the data that's coming in. I think that is so freaking cool that now you can take a spreadsheet, you can see what it's going to look like, and everything is set before you hit enter. And what you get out is a spreadsheet with data that makes perfect sense at that point. I think that is huge. And granted, I'm like 9 years behind with SharePoint 2010, but it's a huge advancement over SharePoint 2010.
I think this will going to be one of those things that 5 years from now, when you talk to someone who didn't use SharePoint back now, it'll kind of be like what do you mean that used to not work that way? It makes sense. Excel and lists are so easy to understand the correlation in your brain of what it should be, that once they have this tool that works and works well, it'll kind of be like a how did I live without it type of a thing. And so definitely cool to see it rolling out.
Oh, definitely. Well, cool. Well, mine is direct links to individual PowerPoint slides. I was super excited when they showed this one off. I'm a little bit bummed that the piece that's rolling out is the web only, because I do tend to be a client gal. I tend to go into clients mostly. I don't know if it's because I'm just more comfortable in them or because there's features missing. I don't know. But I do love the ability to just a direct link to an individual PowerPoint slide. That is going to save me oodles of time, oodles of explanation. I mean, to be honest, before this feature existed, I would just take, if I had a large deck, I would just take the one out and put it into a new one. That was easier than having to explain. So I'm really excited about that one coming out. Now bring it to my client. That will make me even happier. So I'm sure it'll come. So awesome. Well, moving right along. And so, Adam, let's keep the streak going. Why don't you talk to us about launched features? What is your favorite feature that's launched this week?
Sure, and I actually don't think we've talked about this one, and I thought it was really cool when I read it. It's the password-protected links for OneDrive for Business. So they've had one-time passwords for a long time. If I went in and shared a file, someone could go in and get a password to access it. But this is taking it a step further, where I can put a password on any file I have in OneDrive, create a link that people can use it, but the only way that they can access that link in that file is if they have the actual password. So pretty cool, easy, customizable way that you can go in and you can share a file out with people, make it maybe a little bit more easily accessible than just, I have to go in and individually share it every time, but at the same time, not have it as open as maybe like the marketing example we talked about from SharePoint earlier. So a really cool thing to do, that you can actually password protect files and then create a link people can use, and as long as they have a password, they can access it. I hadn't really heard of that before. I thought it's really cool, and that should be, as Jen said, launched. So it should be something you should be able to go in and play around with in your own tenant.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Duff.
So I don't know that I would consider this my favorite thing. It's just one of those ones where you need to be kind of aware of this, because you'd probably turn it off in email. You may want to do the same thing in Teams. And that is, Teams is now supporting read receipts in private chats. So you're chatting with somebody and you throw a chat out there and they haven't responded, and you're thinking, I wonder if they're purposely ignoring me. Have they seen it yet? Have they not seen it yet? Well, now you can set up and request read receipts for those kind of things. I'm really torn, because it's like, I don't want somebody knowing whether I've read their item or not, and I don't want them to know if I'm purposely ignoring them. It's just one of those things to be aware of. There's admin settings on whether it can be turned off and all those kind of things, but just be aware that you may be in a scenario where somebody's going, I see you haven't read my chat message, and go, what do you mean? Well, now they know you haven't read their chat message. So just one of those heads up, be aware that that does now exist in Teams as well as email throughout the world.
I love it. I love it. All right. And the last one that I have is they're two, they kind of go hand in hand, and that's going to be your SharePoint custom page templates. So you can create custom page templates to use throughout the organization and manage them there, as well as organizational assets. So both of those features are now fully launched and out in the environments for the world to use, which are very great. Another step in making intranets great again. So it's awesome there. So that's all exciting there. So like we said, I know there's a lot going on this week, so sorry we didn't have time to go through all of them, but be honest, you guys don't really need to go through all of them. A lot of them we've said before when we look through the list, a lot and lots and lots of repeats. They tend to be on there for a couple of weeks in a row, but we will put all of the notes in the comments for wherever we post this. So take a look at the comments. If you have any questions, let us know. Feel free to tweet this out, share it with all of your all of your colleagues and coworkers. I don't think your friends and family care much, but feel free to spread this out, and we will be back again next week with some more updates, and we hope to see you guys then. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Guys. Bye, everyone.